Okay, welcome. We are in Senate Institutions. It is Wednesday, May 28th, and we will be discussing and likely voting on the House amended version of S69, an act relating to age appropriate design code. And we have with us today in committee the sponsor of the bill in the House, Representative Tony Miklas, and we also have Ledge Counsel. And Representative Nicholas, would you like to come join us? And thank you very much for being here, and thank you for your work on this bill. And if you would just let the committee know. Oh, actually, we can introduce ourselves. Wendy Harrison, Wyndham District.
Rob Plunkett, Bennington District.
Joe Major, Windsor District.
Nice to see you all.
Yeah.
So for starters, I did not sponsor the bill, I did co-sponsor, but
Okay.
I was the teller of the bill.
Okay.
I am Representative Tony Miklas. I represent in Franklin County in the House of Representatives. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay. Great.
So I'm not sure. I can kind of give you a summary of S69. The purpose of it was to throw some protections, to get some protections on some children. There's been countless studies about the damage that social media specifically is doing to children. Getting them addicted. Possibly. You hear about all sorts of mental health issues, suicide. Exploitation, all sorts of terrible things. I can tell you firsthand. I have two essentially grandchildren, granddaughters that are 12 and 14, and they're constantly in their phones. And what are they on? They're on TikTok. And our bill here was designed to put a little bit of protection on the children. There are a couple of things that we had put into the design that we want to make sure we dealt with. Number one is we are very aware of the First Amendment, and we want to make sure that anything that we put in would not in any way regulate content or what they can and can't see of their own choosing. We were more focused on what was what was behind the scenes going on. Are they, there's a lot of algorithms that go on in the background, and we want to make sure that there wasn't any, I don't want to say nefarious, because a lot of times people will do things in the interest of serving the people, but sometimes it can go a little too far. So we wanted to put together some guidelines for people, and really this bill applies just to really social media companies, which to the best of my knowledge there are none in the state of Vermont right now. I can tell you that I have heard concerns that it may hurt businesses. I fail to see, I'm not seeing where that's a thing. Secondly, when we took testimony in our committee, we did not have a single business come forward with any concerns about the bill. Beyond that, I touch a little bit on the privacy settings. I don't think it's a big ask for them to default to the most private settings. The other thing, which I think is very important in this, we've all heard about, the child sex slave trade and things like that. And a lot of that stuff happens because an adult that the child doesn't know reaches out to them, sometimes posing as a child or whatever, and gets them to come out. And the missing children list is just filled with children where, I believe this happened to. So we want to put some protections down that said, look, and in my opinion, it's the most important part of the bill is if that adult does not know the child, that they should not be able to have access. We all, any of us have been on Facebook, you get your suggested friends. I don't think it's a big ask for us to ask them to check in the algorithm to see if they're adults. And if the child is there to make sure that, they can't see those suggested friends. Now, we want to make it clear that if a child reaches out, for example, my two granddaughters, well, perhaps they're not on Facebook. If they wanted to, maybe they would send a fresh friend request out, and that would be fine because they're initiating that. And we wanted to make sure that if the child chose to do things, that they completely and totally have the ability to do that. The other thing I would maybe talk a little bit about is the, we've put in, this law doesn't come into effect, I think, until 2 years from now. And we deliberately wanted to give the Attorney General, we talked to the Attorney General's department about making sure they had time for rulemaking. My vision was that the Attorney General would get feedback from businesses that would be concerned about, how it would affect their business, and would take testimony from those businesses and incorporate what their concerns are. I am a business owner, and I completely understand how important it is for us to be able to reach out to our customers and all those, reach out to them, upsell them, all these types of things. My philosophy has always been, it doesn't with adults necessarily, not necessarily with children, but I think you should be able to, as a business, to collect whatever data you want from your customer. But you need to let them know what data you're going to collect. You need to let them know what you're going to do with that data. And you need to give them the choice to say, I don't want you to do that to my data. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't know. I'm not sure what more to say. So this is the first time I've really tested.
Well, thank you. No, you're doing a great job.
You mentioned that absolutely no businesses came forward to give you testimony and why you shouldn't have this amendment back here.
That is correct. No Vermont business. So we did have some nonprofits.
No Vermont business.
Correct.
Those businesses that did, or you had some nonprofits.
Well, there was, I'm trying to remember, there was One Choice or something like that. Forgive me. I don't have the Net Choice. Thank you.
Okay.
And there was one other one, and their name escapes me. My apologies.
What was their position?
Their concerns around the freedom of speech was on the First Amendment. And, I think that's about it. There might have been a concern about implementation. Not sure. I'm an IT guy. I do programming, and I think what we're wanting to do here, I don't see where that's a heavy lift for implementation. Not if you have a talented software programmer, which most of these companies can, sure, especially big tech.
Right.
Okay.
So I just wanted to ask a question. Can you explain to us when we modified the bill before we sent it to the House, we also didn't hear from businesses, but just to be very careful and kind of double protect the businesses, we added the thresholds for businesses, and the House chose to take those out. So can you talk to us about your thoughts and the discussion?
Yeah, I don't recall talking a whole lot about thresholds. I do remember talking about businesses.
Okay.
There was some requests. I think some nonprofits that asked to be exempt. Our conversation with Ledge Council was that we needed to tread lightly, because if we start saying, well, this business is exempt, this business is exempt, this business is exempt, we're beginning to cross that line of free speech.
Okay.
And then our bill begins to look like we're targeting big tech. And that's not what we're doing here. We're here to protect the children.
Okay. Thank you. Good.
That was my question.
Okay. Well, so what we heard was that someone said, and it would be good to know if it's an urban legend or not, that even if it was one person doing these things in the basement, they shouldn't be doing these things.
No, I'm talking about the adult.
Yeah, just the harm that's being done. I mean, from my perspective, often intentionally.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess I really can't speak much to that. I mean,
Okay.
I'm not, I don't think that we're ever going to be able to stop all of it. People who want to do that bad enough are going to be able to do it no matter what, but the hope is to reduce it and maybe put some speed bumps in it. And I think from the perspective of the child, I think a lot of times these children don't know what they're getting into. And how many children, once they realize what they're, if we put, I'm not saying we're going to do this in the bill, but if a pop-up came up that said, hey, by the way, if you adjust this privacy settings, adults that don't know who you are going to be able to friend you. How do you feel about that? I mean, how many of them are going to go, whoa, wait a minute here? So, I think that a lot of it, and I think me personally, the way you prevent a lot of these things is education. I work in IT and we, I can put all the security you want on your computer, your phone, whatever, but they don't use that anymore. It's very rare. It's all social engineering, and it's all about getting you to give them permission.
Right. Okay.
And I think anything we can do to stop that and say, hey, by the way, what you're doing may have some unintended consequences. And this is what I'm hoping the bill will do. In the long run by setting the maximum privacy settings and things like that. Now they can adjust them after that if they want. But I mean, I'm an IT guy, and I don't know if any of you have ever gone through privacy settings, but even I had difficulty understanding that. And so there's so many people, adults and children alike, that just say, okay, we'll just go with the defaults. And I think I don't want to say it's nefarious, but it is advantageous to a social media company to have the least amount of privacy as possible, because then they can collect more data on you and then use that for targeted ads and things like that. And like I said, we're all business people. We all want to make money. But I think when it comes to the children, I think we need to be a little more careful.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll hang out for a little bit.
Okay. So do we have any questions or things that we want to talk to Rick about? Or Rick, is there anything you think we should know?
I have one comment that I'll bring to the committee's
Okay.
attention. Yeah, if you don't mind. Good afternoon again, Rick Sagal, Office of Legislative Counsel. One thing I noted, I don't think it's a concern in the effective date section. You may remember that the bill is effective Jan 1, 2027. That was changed in the House. It was July 1, 2026, I believe, in your version. One thing that AG asked for is the rulemaking to give them the authority to start that earlier. And I didn't think it was necessary, but I put in there that they can begin rulemaking July 1, 2025. The issue, I don't think it is one, but giving you full disclosure here, it's my mistake, is that the effective date section also needs an effective date. Okay. So what could come up is the act is still effective January 1, 2027. That's not arguable. Okay. In my legal opinion, the AG can begin rulemaking whenever they want. The governor signs a bill on June 15th, right? The AG could theoretically begin rulemaking in anticipation of January 1, 2027. The act requires the AG to have those on or before Jan 1, 2027. The issue that could come up is they could argue, hey, the effective date section tells us that we don't really have to begin this until January 1, 2027. I don't think that's a problem.
Tells the AG that they don't.
Right. So
All right, but their intent is.
yes, I'm getting full disclosure here. It's the
All right.
effective date section should also have an effective date. It's my mistake, but I have no concern. If you have an amendment, I would fix it. But if you don't have an amendment,
Yeah, we don't have an amendment. At least
then
not yet.
I have no,
And I wasn't anticipating an amendment.
I have no concerns about
Okay.
the legal operation of rulemaking. It's not going to be effective. Yeah,
Okay, good.
that's my only comment. I'm glad to answer questions or anything else you may have.
Do we have any questions?
Done.
I really appreciate what the House did. There's more clarity and you dealt with several of the content versus process or issues. I think it's good. Are we ready to take a vote?
Yes.
We don't have Sam here, but we can still take a vote.
Do you do a regular? I think you do.
Or just a straw poll. We can just do a straw poll. All right, so all in favor? Okay, so it's 3-0-2. For the record. All right.
Okay.
And you and I will report the bill.
Yep.
And we will do